my pleasure to introduce Ginger Gouveia, who has enjoyed living in Walport for the last 24 years after retiring from real estate in Corvallis. She is the grandmother of 8 amazing grandkids, all in their 20s. She's been involved with social justice activities since her 20s, with a keen interest in housing and hunger issues. She has traveled solo throughout the world during the last 24 years. Most of her travels have included staying with Servas families and getting to learn about their communities and culture. Servas is an organization connecting hosts and travelers, a multicultural network promoting peace by building awareness through conversation. Through mutual connection, it is their hope to reduce fear, thus hate, thus the threat of war. In her free time, she enjoys kayaking, bicycling, and art. Welcome, Ginger.
Okay, close to the mic. Can you all hear me? I'm sorry, I have a low voice, so sometimes it's hard to hear. I want to thank you all for inviting me, giving me this opportunity to share my experiences with Servas and a bit of my experiences in Israel and Palestine. Servas, I want to first talk about Servas. It was established in 1972, and it really is a network of people throughout the world giving an opportunity to share cultures. That's the main goal and purpose. As she said, that it is based on the conception that the more we learn about other cultures, the less fear. Fear leads to hate, and hate leads to war. So it is basically a peace organization through conversation. So how does it work? Well, travelers are invited to stay 2 nights, typically 2 nights, sometimes a little bit longer, at your home, and there's no cost involved. And usually you share at least 1 meal with the host family and a lot of conversation in between, but the rest of the time you're able to go out and tour. And what is very special about it, I think, is that someone who lives in the community knows more about the community, and it opens doors that you would never get as a regular traveler staying in a hotel reading brochures and tour guides and the like. I've had some amazing experiences. So even though you are hosted for 2 days, you still have an opportunity to go out and check out the surrounding areas and have your own experiences. So at this time, Servas, this is how it works. At this time, Servas is an all-volunteer program. We used to have an office in Arcata, California. The costs were more prohibitive, so we've closed the office, and now it's all volunteers. So there's an annual fee of $35 a year, which is pretty minimal. So easy to join. So you apply for membership online, servas.org. I do, by the way, have some handouts on the table regarding Servas and another organization in Israel and Palestine that I want to share information about. So, you make your application online at the website, and then you will be interviewed by one of the volunteers. I am an interviewer, and I live in Walport. You're welcome to contact them and let them know you can talk to me. And it's just a conversation with an interviewer to give you more information about the philosophy and the goals of Servas, and also to know that you're not just looking for you've heard of couch surfing, right? And that's a free place to live. We want to be more than just a free place to live. We want to have exchange of ideas and cultures. So the interview will kind of ask those kind of questions. I can only remember one time in all my experience that I could get a sense that someone was just trying to find a place to stay. And so I mean, that was the only time I ever brought up my concerns, and that person was not asked to join the organization. So after the interview, they will then provide you with a form where you fill out, it's called a letter of introduction, LOI, and you talk about who you are, excuse me, your family, your interests, and why you want to travel, etc. This letter of introduction is then posted is available through the website. You have a list of volunteers on the host volunteers on the website. If you're going to India, you look up all the hosts that are in that area. You can find one that you feel compatible with because they also have a letter of introduction. So you may have a choice of 3 or 4, but you find someone that you feel comfortable with. And then contact them through email directly. Usually I do it about 3 weeks ahead of time, sometimes earlier than that. But typically, most hosts would I would like to know about a week ahead of someone's time. Now, it's not just people from Universal, from other countries, but also from the United States. I host quite a few people that are, from the East Coast or from the United States. So during I just want to share some of my experiences. And during the last 24 years, I've been traveling a lot solo, which is all even more important to have a Servas host to talk with and stay with. So some of the countries that I've stayed with, and these are countries that I have stayed with hosts in Servas host: Mexico, Panama, China, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Turkey, Vietnam, Cambodia, India, Newfoundland, New Zealand, Israel, and Palestine. And just to let you know that they're everywhere. I have many stories, but I'm going to cut the stories short so I can talk about my experiences, particularly in staying with Servas hosts in Israel and Palestine. I forgot to look at the time. Okay, sorry. One of my favorite trips was to Turkey, and actually also met one of my favorite Servas hosts there. We stayed in Izmir, Turkey. My sister was traveling with me. She just retired lately, so she's been traveling with me the last few years. We stayed with this amazingly wonderful young man who was a 4th grade English teacher in Turkey. He invited us to go into his classroom with him. Now, when I travel, I used to take little gifts and everything, but I realized I don't want to carry all that around with me. So what I do now is I take balloons and a pump, and I make balloon hats, and I make balloon animals for the kids. So Servas has allowed me to open doors. I've gone into schools, into orphanages, into elderly care into hospitals and the like, and blown balloons for people. Now, that could never happen if I was just an American, going to a little community in India. So I was able to go into his classroom and do my balloons, and he used the balloons as part of his educational piece, because he was talking about how do you say colors in English, so we'd use the different colors for and it was so much fun. And then I gave all the little kids a little balloon, and we blowed up little simple animals for them. That was one experience. And also when we arrived at his house, he had a wife and little daughter. He lived in a kind of a community. He had a potluck with all his community members and all his neighbors there to welcome us. It was like just an amazing experience. One of my favorites, and I'm still in contact with him. My trip to South Africa, I stayed with a number of Servas hosts, but my favorite was in Durban, and she was just actually we really connected. And she was working with women from the township that were making beaded jewelry, and she was trying to help them start a business. So one of the young women that I met. And I actually stayed with her for about a week because I was having a wonderful time. And so I met this one woman she was staying with, she was working with, and we were able to go to the township and visit her family. Now, you have to understand that in these townships, white foreigners are not really happily accepted. And I would never have been able to just go on my own. But we were able to, because of this young woman, we were able to go to her house, have coffee and tea and cookies, meet her young kids, and I took my balloons there too. So I blew the balloons with the kids, and it was just a lot of fun, you know. In China, I had a number of experiences, but I just want to share one. This one young woman, I think she was like about 35, single woman, owned her own apartment and 2 other pieces of property. Now, in China, it's unheard of for us single female to own property and to have value, and she was fairly well off. So she she actually wanted to come back to the United States with me because she said, I cannot find a husband here because I know they're all looking at my money and I don't know if they really love me. And so she said, if I go to the United States, then they won't know that I have all this money. She didn't, but anyway, she didn't come back. But it was just fascinating to see that part of it. Then, excuse me, but I suffer from dry mouth, so. Oh, one other opportunity in India. I was in Jaipur. I've been to India a couple times, but spent quite a bit of time there. But I was in Jaipur, and our host was a member of the Lions Club, and he said, there's a parade tomorrow. It's Gandhi's birthday, and we have an annual parade. Would you like to go to it? He said, all the school children are released from school, and they're all in the parade. I said, yes, that sounds great. So we got there, and unbelievably, they closed the main road in Jaipur. And I don't know how many of you have been in India, but that just does not happen. So I thought, this is probably bigger than I thought it was. And there were hundreds of children in the parade, and I was walking with them. I mean, I was like about this much taller than everybody else, and I was this American, woo, you know. They didn't know I was from Wallport, Oregon. I became a dignitary just because I was from America. And so we did the parade. I had such a wonderful time. And then afterwards, they had a outdoor buffet, and all the city dignitaries were there. And they invited me to be part of them. And then we had a photo. I had to stand with the dignitaries, me from Wallport, Oregon. The next day, it was the main front page of the newspaper. It's like, I mean, probably extremely exciting for someone like me, you know. Not just my world experiences, but also traveling in the United States. One of my favorites was in Vermont, and we stayed at a rural home with 2 women. And they had goats, and they were just so charming and so wonderful. I learned how to make goat cheese. Now, that wouldn't happen on a regular travel, right? So on to Palestine and Israel. So there are an extremely large number of Israelis who belong to Servos. They have a very strong Servos recognition there. And I stayed with a total of 8 families, 6 families in Israel and 2 families in Palestine, in the West Bank. The families ranged from extremely conservative to extremely progressive, I would say, supporters of Palestinian rights. Of course, it's a Servos organization, so it would lean more towards peace, peaceful negotiations and the like. The family, the conservative family, they were still very nice and very welcoming to me. Their daughter lived in a settlement, and I think she was about 28 and already had 6 children. they weren't happy about that, but they were very proud of the fact that she lived in the settlement. With that family, I mainly just listened. I didn't really speak a lot about my concerns for the Palestinian rights, but it was good to hear. It was good to have a cultural exchange, and that's what Servas is all about. We don't all agree on everything, right? But if we can talk, if we can have conversation, it helped me to understand where they were coming from. I stayed with another family in a kibbutz. They were not involved in politics, but they were involved in supporting a Bedouin community there. Now, the Bedouins are the nomadic tribes that have lived, they're Arab tribes. They're Israeli citizens, but they're Arabs, and they've lived in the Negev desert since the 19th century. They're not as nomadic as they were before, but this family was supporting an organization that made solar ovens and solar stoves for the Bedouin community, because oftentimes they don't have good electricity output. Which brings me to how do I give back to these families? They were supporting this organization, and oftentimes what I do when I'm staying with a family is find out if they have a nonprofit that they particularly like and support. Then I'll donate money to that, and that's what I did. I donated money to this particular organization. Another thing I would do is to find out what sweets, if there's a favorite candy shop or something, or if there's a favorite restaurant they like, then I would take them out to dinner, or buy some candy or buy some treats for them, in lieu of taking a gift, because it means more. And I'm also putting money into the community rather than bringing it from the U.S., and that makes a difference too. I did, in fact, stay with a Bedouin family. There was a family that were Servas hosts, so I stayed. A lot of the Bedouins still live in those big black tents. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of them, but I only have 5 minutes? Oh my gosh. Sorry. I'm sorry? Okay. Okay. I did stay with a Bedouin family, and that was a very different cultural exchange. Other service hosts I stayed with, one was a checkpoint watcher. And what she did is and I went with her one day, and we stood, and what she did was to basically be there at the checkpoint when the workers are coming into Jerusalem and Israel. They have to go through the checkpoints, which they line up like 4 a.m. to get to. But anyway, she would stand, and if they had issues, like legal issues, needed doctor, needed some kind of support, she had little handouts that she would give them. And if she saw something that was, if the people were being abused or whatever, then she would document that and report it to authorities. My very favorite Servas host was Judy Shilton, a woman who lived in Jerusalem, a Jewish woman who came from Canada. And I knew right away she would be a good friend, because when I walked into her kitchen, she had a moosewood cookbook up there, and I figured, I said, I'm in the right place. I can see that. We actually went to a couple demonstrations and protests in Jerusalem with her, and I then was going to make arrangements to stay with a family in Hebron, a wonderful gentleman by the name Naim. Well, Judy knew Naim. Now, originally, Servas was in the West Bank and Israel, and they were all friends. But when the wall was put up, she hadn't seen him for 10 years. She's known him for many, many years, and she said, I want to go with you. I said, you can't go with me. You can't drive your car in that Palestinian community. You'll get arrested by the authorities, by the Israeli authorities. So she said, I want to go. She said, I don't care. She's like 80. I don't care. At my age, they can throw me in jail. I don't care. So we did go, but I told Naim, he said, she can't drive here. I will pick you up at the checkpoint. So he came out and picked us up at the checkpoint in his car. We went to his house. We spent the afternoon there. I met his mother and his family. Naim was a professor at Hebron University in Peace and Reconciliation Studies. A very gentle, wonderful human being. So he was from Old Hebron, and he wanted to share with us where he went to school and where the community center was. So he took us walking through Old Hebron. Now, in Old Hebron, where many, obviously, areas in the West Bank, there's checkpoints everywhere that they have to go through. There's also a street in Hebron that's a wide main street. It's very wide on one side and a very narrow walkway on, with a little cement divider. Palestinians have to walk on the narrow walkway, and anyone else, Israelis, foreigners, everyone can walk on the wide area. So they had to walk down. We actually walked with them on their side. But then we got to a checkpoint, and Judy had blue eyes and blonde hair. I used to have blonde hair and blue eyes. And no problem with us going through, but Naim, this gentle person, was, in my opinion, how can I put this, was not treated appropriately. Was treated with disdain. It really bothered me to see this, because that young 18-year-old soldier had no idea who he was talking to. But Naim was very quiet about it, and we went on through, and he showed us where his old school was, where he went swimming and all this. Now, he had been, the settlers had come into Old Hebron, so that's why he lived in a newer neighborhood. I have many other stories about my experiences in Palestine and Israel, and of course I don't have time to go through all of those. Let's see. I stayed with a family in Hebron who they were in the import-export business. I stayed with the mother. She had lots of money. They had a very nice house. And she said, I can afford to go anywhere. I have plenty of money, but I can't leave. I cannot go into Israel. I'm in an outdoor prison here, but I have a good life here, but I would like the freedom to go somewhere else. Let's see. Sorry if I'm trying to speed along here. So I think through my experiences, basically visiting families and experiencing both in the West Bank and in Israel, it opened my eyes and my understanding of the emotional impact of the issues that are constant there on both sides, I want to tell you about an organization, and I have brochures about this organization out there. It's a Parents Circle Family Forum. The one I belong to is American Friends of Parents Circle Family Forum. And what this is made up of individuals both from Palestine and from Israel who have lost loved ones in the conflict. And what they do is they get together and they have conversation. They have dialogue with each other. They work through horrors, they work through pain, and realize that true way to peace is not through violence and not through retribution, but through dialogue and through talking. It's an amazing organization, and they have a website, and they have a lot of YouTube videos, and I invite you to look at some of those videos. They have an annual youth peace group, and where youth from Israel and Palestine get together and spend 2 weeks with a lot of hard conversation, but in the end, an understanding that we're really all looking for the same thing. This organization goes into schools in Israel and Palestine, and they'll have one person from a Palestinian and an Israeli have conversation with these schools and these students. And then not very long ago, the Knesset ruled that they could not be allowed to go into Israeli schools. Well, there was a big uproar. They went to court, and they were able to regain their opportunities to go into the schools. I just admire these people so much, and I hope you have the opportunity to see some of the videos. So I won't go into that. I think that, I mean, perhaps it's idealistic to think that dialogue and conversation will end end this war, but I'm hoping it will. That's it.